For years, David Paulides debunked Bigfoot reports, and now he presents the most powerful evidence ever collected. What he discovered in California's Hoopa Valley is evidence so compelling that it challenged everything he knew about the Sasquatch's existence. And it all started with a phone call in February Divitukstoshi Septin Padsmit. David Paulides had spent decades as a law enforcement officer before transitioning into investigating Bigfoot. His missing 411 research had brought him face-to-face with patterns that defied conventional explanation. By 2017, Paulides had documented over 400 cases where missing persons reports coincided with Bigfoot sightings. But he was a former detective who dealt in evidence, not stories. He needed actual proof. In February 2017, tribal elders from the Hoopa Valley Reservation had contacted Paulides directly after a series of incidents near a creek that suggested something large and unknown was actively living in their territory. For centuries, the Hoopa people had maintained detailed accounts of interactions with what they called the Oma, massive, intelligent forest beings that avoided human contact but left unmistakable signs of their presence. These weren't typical Bigfoot sighting reports. What convinced Paulides to make the trip wasn't just the physical evidence the tribal rangers described. The tribal ranger McCovey had captured something on a trail camera that he refused to discuss over the phone. Paulides arrived at the Hoopa Valley Reservation on March 12, 2017, with a carefully selected research team. Their first destination was a remote area accessible only by a narrow dirt road that wound through a dense forest. What they found within the first hour of searching exceeded everything Paulides had hoped for. Near a grove of massive trees, a series of footprints stretched along the creek in a perfect trackway. The footprints measured 18.5 inches long and 8.5 inches wide, dimensions that placed them far outside the range of any known North American animal. But size wasn't what made these prints extraordinary. The anatomical detail preserved in the mud was strange. Individual toe impressions were clearly visible, showing a foot structure that was neither fully human nor fully ape, but something uniquely adapted for both bipedal locomotion and forest navigation. Most significantly, the prints contained dermal ridges, the equivalent of fingerprints on the sole of the foot. Webb documented 47 individual prints that extended 127 feet along the creek bank, creating the most comprehensive footprint evidence ever collected in Bigfoot research. Following the trackway upstream, they encountered something much more challenging. Approximately 200 yards from the initial print discovery, they found what tribal ranger McCovey called a day nest, a deliberately constructed shelter. This was not created by human hands. The structure measured 9 feet in diameter and had been created by breaking and weaving branches from surrounding trees into a dome-like formation. The breaks in the branches weren't random or caused by wind damage. They showed deliberate twisting at heights between 8 and 10 feet above ground level. Inside the structure, compressed vegetation formed a bedding area that suggested regular use over an extended period. The compressed plant material was arranged in patterns indicating that a large object regularly rested at the center of the shelter, while the surrounding arrangement of broken branches created a windbreak that would provide protection from the elements while maintaining visual concealment from outside observers. Then, Dr. Chen found several long hairs on broken branches. Paulides collected 37 individual hair samples, documenting each collection point with detailed photographs. The team established a broader search pattern, expanding their investigation to include the entire Creek Valley and surrounding ridgelines. On the morning of March 14th, the team made the discovery that would transform their investigation from documenting interesting evidence to potential proof of an unknown species. While conducting an early morning survey of a second suspected nesting site approximately 1.3 miles from their initial location, Paulides found fresh biological material that would provide the breakthrough evidence he had been seeking for decades. At 6:47 a.m., while checking the perimeter of what appeared to be another constructed shelter, Paulides discovered fresh scat deposited on a fallen log. The fecal material was massive, approximately 3 inches in diameter and 14 inches long, containing partially digested plant matter, seeds, and what appeared to be small bone fragments from consumed prey animals. The size and composition of the scat immediately indicated something far larger than any known North American mammal. Bears, the largest potential candidate, produce scat that is typically much smaller and shows different dietary patterns. This material suggested a creature with a digestive system adapted to process both plant and animal matter, consistent with the omnivorous diet pattern that researchers had hypothesized for Bigfoot. The team established a 50-meter security perimeter around the discovery site and conducted a search for additional evidence. At 7:23 a.m., Dr. Chen made a discovery that caused even the most skeptical member of their team to pause and rethink. Near a small seep spring just 30 yards from the scat discovery, she found a partial handprint pressed into soft mud. The handprint measured approximately 11 inches from the thumb tip to the opposite finger, displaying 5 distinct digits, including what appeared to be a fully opposable thumb. The size was enormous, far larger than any human hand, but the anatomical structure was unmistakably primate-like. Forensic technician Webb immediately began creating detailed plaster casts, while Paulides documented the discovery with photography and precise measurements. The handprint represented physical evidence of manual dexterity and anatomical sophistication that went far beyond the capabilities of any known North American animal. Bears, despite their size and intelligence, do not possess opposable thumbs or the fine motor control suggested by this print. The team collected additional hair samples from nearby vegetation, including several specimens with what appeared to be follicles still attached, material that would be crucial for successful DNA extraction and analysis. Systematic evidence collection continued throughout the morning, with more than 400 photographs taken, multiple plaster casts created, and biological samples secured in accordance with procedures that would satisfy the most rigorous scientific peer review. While documenting the handprint site, videographer Tom Richards noticed movement in the dense forest approximately 100 yards upslope from their position. The movement was subtle, a shifting of shadows among the trees, but it was deliberate and too large to be explained by normal wildlife activity. Richards quietly signaled Paulides while continuing to operate his camera equipment, which had been running continuously throughout the morning. The camera was equipped with telephoto lenses capable of capturing clear images at long distances, and Richards had positioned it to monitor the broader forest area while the team collected evidence. The movement upslope continued for several minutes, suggesting something large was observing their activities while remaining concealed in the dense undergrowth. The behavior pattern was consistent with intelligent surveillance, maintaining visual contact while avoiding direct exposure, using natural cover to remain hidden, and positioning for optimal observation of human activity. Paulides decided to continue their evidence collection procedures without acknowledging the presence of their observer. His decades of law enforcement experience had taught him that maintaining normal behavior patterns was crucial when dealing with potentially dangerous, unknown situations. By the time they prepared to leave the Hoopa Valley on March 15th, Paulides had assembled what represented the most comprehensive physical evidence collection in the history of Bigfoot research. Multiple plaster casts of footprints and handprints, 37 hair samples with follicles, fresh biological material for DNA analysis, soil samples from print sites, and over 400 photographs with GPS metadata. The evidence was immediately shipped to independent laboratories for analysis under blind submission protocols. The laboratories weren't informed about the source or nature of the specimens they were testing, ensuring that results wouldn't be influenced by preconceptions or bias regarding Bigfoot research. Paulides had learned from previous cases that scientific credibility required strict adherence to established testing procedures and chain-of-custody documentation. Finding laboratories willing to test the samples proved nearly impossible. UC Davis, UC Berkeley, and all the major labs refused to analyze the material when they discovered it was Bigfoot-related. The scientific community's bias against cryptozoological research meant that even properly collected evidence faced institutional resistance. The only facility willing to conduct the analysis was a private laboratory with expertise in forensic genetics. The initial laboratory results were received in May 2017 and exceeded Paulides' most optimistic expectations. The DNA extracted from both the hair samples and biological material showed clear primate markers consistent with the great ape family. But the genetic sequences didn't match any known species in the comprehensive GenBank database containing over 34 trillion base pairs of genetic information from every cataloged organism on Earth. The results definitively ruled out human contamination and excluded gorilla, chimpanzee, orangutan, and all other cataloged primate species. The genetic analysis revealed something unprecedented in primate research: DNA sequences that suggested an evolutionary branch that had diverged from human ancestors millions of years ago, developing along a completely separate pathway that had resulted in adaptations for survival in North American forest environments. Critics argued contamination, suggesting that human DNA got mixed into samples during collection or testing. They pointed to methodological concerns and the fact that the study wasn't published in a major peer-reviewed journal. For many scientists, the results were interesting but ultimately inconclusive, more likely to reflect problems with the testing process than evidence of an unknown species. But Paulides had a response to contamination arguments. Even if contamination occurred in the worst possible way, someone grabbing the hair sample, rolling it between their hands, rubbing it on their face, the lab would still cleanse it, and even if contamination remained, what would the testing reveal? On the maternal side, you'd find the contaminator's mother's DNA. On the paternal side, you'd find the contaminator's father's DNA. To find nothing on the paternal side, to find DNA that matches nothing in any database, is literally impossible through contamination. Independent verification of the results came from a second laboratory using different testing procedures and equipment. The genetic sequences were consistent across both analyses, ruling out contamination or testing errors. The DNA was undeniably from an unknown primate species that possessed characteristics unlike anything in the scientific literature. The plaster casts were analyzed by forensic anthropologists who confirmed that the footprints showed anatomical features consistent with bipedal locomotion, but with adaptations that exceeded normal human capabilities. The foot structure suggested something designed for both upright walking and efficient movement through dense forest terrain, with muscle attachment points that indicated exceptional strength and agility. The handprint analysis revealed manual dexterity capabilities that approached human levels while maintaining proportions and bone structure that were clearly non-human. The opposable thumb functionality suggested sophisticated tool use capabilities, while the overall size and strength indicators pointed to physical capabilities that far exceeded human norms. But the most significant evidence remained locked on Tom Richards' camera equipment. Throughout the investigation, his cameras had been running continuously, capturing not only the evidence collection procedures, but also documenting the forest environment and any activity within the camera's field of view. The footage contained something that would provide visual confirmation of what the physical evidence suggested. The camera had captured clear images of their observer during the morning of March 14th. The telephoto lenses had recorded approximately 4 minutes of footage showing a large, bipedal figure moving through the forest upslope from their position. The figure was clearly not human. Too large, too heavily muscled, covered in dark hair that matched the samples they had collected. Most significantly, the figure's behavior demonstrated intelligence and awareness, carefully maintaining concealment while obviously studying human activity. The creature used natural cover with sophistication that indicated detailed understanding of human visual capabilities and limitations. It moved only when team members were focused on their evidence collection work, remained motionless when anyone looked in its direction, and maintained positions that provided optimal observation while minimizing exposure. Frame-by-frame analysis of the video revealed anatomical details that corroborated the physical evidence. The creature's proportions matched the measurements suggested by the footprints and handprints, while its movement patterns demonstrated the bipedal locomotion capabilities indicated by the trackway analysis. The footage provided visual confirmation that the physical evidence represented genuine biological material from a living unknown primate species. The video also captured vocalizations that were unlike anything in North American wildlife databases. Low-frequency calls that seemed designed for long-distance communication, suggesting that multiple individuals might be present in the valley and maintaining contact across significant distances. The vocalizations showed tonal variations and patterns that indicated structured communication rather than simple animal sounds. Audio analysis of the recorded vocalizations revealed frequency ranges that exceeded what most known animals could produce. The calls contained harmonic structures and tonal variations that suggested a form of complex communication. Similar patterns had been documented in other locations, including the famous Sierra Sounds recorded in the 1970s by Ron Moorhead and his companions in California's Sierra Nevada mountains. The Sierra Sounds recordings had been analyzed by sound engineers and linguistics experts for decades. The recordings weren't from known animals or humans attempting to hoax. The frequency ranges exceeded what human vocal cords could produce, and the patterns showed structure that suggested language, actual communication with grammar and meaning. The vocalizations captured in Hoopa Valley showed similar characteristics, providing additional evidence of intelligence far beyond simple animal communication. What made the Hoopa Valley evidence particularly compelling was its consistency with historical patterns. Native American tribes throughout North America had described encounters with large, intelligent beings that possessed human-like qualities rather than simple animal characteristics. These accounts consistently emphasized the creatures' intelligence, their ability to communicate, and their sophisticated understanding of forest environments. The Hoopa people's accounts of the Oma aligned perfectly with the physical evidence Paulides collected. Tribal elders described beings that constructed shelters, maintained territories, and demonstrated complex social behaviors. The evidence found in March 2017 supported these historical accounts with scientific documentation that could withstand peer review and academic scrutiny. Throughout his investigation, Paulides encountered patterns that traditional researchers had been ignoring. Multiple witnesses, including park rangers, wildlife biologists, and experienced outdoors people, described encounters where massive creatures seemed to vanish in terrain where there was nowhere to hide. These weren't random animal movements, but deliberate actions that suggested intelligence comparable to, or possibly exceeding, human intelligence. The behavioral evidence was as significant as the physical specimens. These beings understood human technology and avoided trail cameras with remarkable consistency. They stayed out of clear lines of sight and seemed to understand when they were being observed or tracked. This wasn't animal cunning. This was strategic intelligence applied specifically to remaining hidden from human detection. Government agencies had documented similar encounters but never made them public. Freedom of Information requests had revealed reports in archives that the general public didn't access. Rangers had been told to redirect questions about unusual sightings, and military personnel stationed in remote areas had been debriefed about encounters and instructed not to discuss them. One document Paulides obtained described an incident at a secure facility in the Pacific Northwest where multiple personnel reported seeing a large bipedal figure moving along the perimeter fence. Security footage captured something but was classified and removed from standard records. The official explanation was that nothing unusual occurred, but employees who were present insisted otherwise. The pattern was consistent across multiple agencies. Acknowledge the event internally, document it, and then minimize or deny it in any public forum. Something was being observed in government-controlled areas, and the official position remained that nothing unusual was happening. The disconnect between private knowledge and public statements raised obvious questions about what authorities actually knew. After analyzing the Hoopa Valley evidence alongside decades of research from across North America, Paulides reached conclusions that challenged conventional scientific understanding. The evidence pointed to the existence of an unknown hominid species that had successfully avoided scientific detection through superior intelligence and sophisticated behavioral adaptations. The DNA results suggested these beings might represent a hybrid, the result of an unknown hominid species interbreeding with humans thousands of years ago. This would explain their human-like appearance, their obvious intelligence, and their ability to remain hidden despite being so large and apparently widespread throughout North American wilderness areas. The implications extended far beyond Bigfoot research. The evidence suggested that human understanding of North American wildlife and forest ecosystems remained fundamentally incomplete. Creatures of remarkable intelligence and capability had successfully maintained their existence while avoiding official recognition for centuries, demonstrating adaptation strategies that exceeded anything documented in conventional wildlife biology. The footage captured in Hoopa Valley represented the culmination of decades of investigation. Frame by frame, the video documented evidence so impossible to dismiss that it forced a complete reassessment of what might be possible in North American wilderness areas. The creature's behavior, anatomy, and intelligence levels suggested something that existed at the boundaries of current scientific understanding. David Paulides had spent years investigating unexplained disappearances and anomalous encounters in national parks and forests. What he discovered in California's Hoopa Valley provided answers to questions that had been troubling him for decades. The evidence confirmed that unknown hominid species continue to inhabit remote areas of North America, maintaining sophisticated concealment strategies while occasionally revealing themselves to careful observers. The breakthrough represented more than just proof of Bigfoot's existence. It opened a window into a hidden world that operates parallel to human civilization, populated by beings of remarkable intelligence who have chosen to remain concealed from mainstream society. The implications challenge fundamental assumptions about human uniqueness and suggest that our understanding of who shares this continent remains incomplete. After nearly 2 decades of investigation, thousands of interviews, analysis of physical evidence from across North America, and careful consideration of reports that seemed impossible, Paulides had finally assembled the proof he had been seeking. The evidence from Hoopa Valley stands as the most significant breakthrough in cryptozoological research, providing scientific documentation that unknown primate species not only exist but possess intelligence levels that have allowed them to maintain successful concealment for centuries. The investigation continues, but the foundation has been established. Something real, something intelligent, something that exists at the edge of human understanding has been documented with scientific rigor that can withstand academic scrutiny. David Paulides finally found his breakthrough evidence, forever changing how science must view the mystery of Bigfoot.